You are listening to Red Team Radio.
Today on Red Team Radio, I have Joe with me, who is a principal at Bishop Fox. He's also the creator of the tool Sliver, a very popular tool used by many companies around the world, as well as just anyone aspiring to be in security. It's actually used as part of like the training platforms online. So, Joe, thank you for coming out and flying out here.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Anytime. And so we used to go to college together.
Yep.
We were roommates.
Yep.
And,
we lived together.
We did, yeah. And that was fun. And,
yeah. Well, that's one word for it.
Yeah. I was having fun.
Yeah, you were. I know.
Yeah.
I noticed that while living with you. No, you were a pretty good roommate.
So, yeah. He did complain earlier about the cell reception that we had at the apartment. So
if you're gonna man in the middle of my traffic, at least forward it properly. You know?
Yeah. I actually did get my hand slapped for that one time in a meeting. There was some execs that came into the office and they'd always look down on their phone, and it was like really peeving me off. So I just fired up the system, started to see what they were saying text message wise, and but it was causing some delay. So the CEO of the company ran into the lab. And he literally looks at me and he's like, "Are you doing anything funny right now?" And I literally look at him, and I have a server in front of me, and I just literally unplug the server. I was like, "No, sir."
Not right now.
And he was like, "Stop it for right now until they leave. Stop it."
Yeah. The latency's unacceptable.
No, they were complaining about how they weren't able to get messaging, or they were trying to download something. They didn't want to connect to the local, at a conference room, conference room Wi-Fi. They're trying to download it and they just weren't able to do it. And they're like, "Yeah, it's been really self-service was fine, but then it got really weird." And that's when the CEO came in.
Yeah. He's like, "I know what's the problem."
Yeah, I don't know what he told them, but I didn't see them for the rest of the day. So he probably was just frustrated with me. I want to listen, I'm explaining things to them, and then all of a sudden they're just down on their phones. I'm like, what you flew out here?
So you just got to send that. You got to inject the sales pitch into their conversation.
Oh, that's
text
right.
message
Yeah.
conversation.
I should have just messaged them from 911, right?
Yeah, that's the best demo.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
I would have bought your product.
Well, they weren't necessarily trying to buy my product. It was
Okay.
the engineering side of the house, right? So mine, we didn't really talk about my product in depth. We talked about security research and the importance of that with them. Yeah. So
it was the freak show. It was like, "Look at Drew."
That's what they would do sometimes.
Yeah.
They'd be like, because I'm the only one in the lab,
yeah.
right? And it was a fairly large space, and then they'd just be like, "And this is our researcher, and we slide food underneath the doors sometimes, and he comes in, and so yeah." But and I don't.
Were they like, "We don't have to let him outside because he's a ginger,
he's a ginger,
so he doesn't need any sunlight."
Like sun. Yeah, that's right. He's actually allergic to it. That was the same place. I was doing a demo for some people, some higher up military people, and my tripod wasn't working. And Royal,
you had to hold the antenna.
He had to hold the antenna.
This is getting warm.
He was like, "This antenna's warm," and then he was reading the back of it, and it says "Stay back 3 meters when in operation." And he was like, "Drew, is this okay?" I was like, "It's gonna be fine, man. The exposure time is not gonna be that much."
Yeah.
It's fine. It was all on, above board. He hasn't had kids yet, though, so no.
Yeah, I wonder why.
If you see this, Royal, and you're actually trying to have kids, sorry, we're not joking about it. I was not the cause for that.
From a very legal standpoint.
Yeah, that's right. I think the time for prosecution has passed. Right?
Yeah, the statute of limitations.
That's right. Yeah. No, it was fun. It was fun. I thought it was fun to move out of the dorms and going into the apartments. So
yeah.
Also annoying though because there's parties all the time.
Yeah, it's a hard life.
Yeah. So we weren't really. Well, I wasn't really a huge partier. So
yeah, I, however.
Yeah, that's right.
Party animal. Let me tell you.
I had to make sure that I drag you back to.
I went to so
apartment.
many LAN parties. You wouldn't even.
Oh man. So in that time,
Mhm.
you used to develop a lot of tools. You actually helped me write some stuff for a talk I gave, and then you got angry at me because I let a buffer overrun condition happen during the talk.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but you've done tool development for a long time,
Mhm.
and one of the most popular tools I think you're known for. You've done quite a few cool ones, but
Mhm.
that one right now is Sliver.
Yep.
Right. So can you explain a little bit about what that tool does, what makes it unique, and what gave you the idea to even like start coming up with it?
Sure. Yeah. So I should also mention that a lot of Sliver is developed by some of my colleagues as well. So
Mm-hmm.
Ronan, Tim, two very talented colleagues of mine, have contributed quite a bit of code. Raf as well. Yeah, we have a very talented team, and I've gotten a lot of help from them. So it's certainly not like just
Just
me.
you. Yeah.
But I initially started it, and actually the genesis was I was using Cobalt Strike on a project,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd just gotten a new MacBook, and it had a high DPI screen, but like whatever version of Swing like Cobalt Strike was compiled with didn't have anti-aliased fonts, and so the font scaling was like all blurry, and it was driving me crazy. Like it was so annoying to me that I had this like beautiful high DPI screen and all of the fonts in Cobalt Strike were blurry. So I did what any reasonable person would do, and I was like, I'll write my own C2 framework from scratch.
Of course, yeah.
That's the only option.
As you do.
As one does. So that no joke was the initial
reason for that.
Yeah, like the initial genesis. At the time I had been we're just starting to work with Go a lot as well. Sliver, written in Go. It's fantastic programming language. We use it for a ton of different stuff. But, I just started sort of playing around. Actually, Sliver is like one of the first things I even wrote in Go. Or like, I've learned a lot since I started. So none of the original code's in there. But one of the really interesting things about Go is it's cross-platform, like cross-compilation. So from any platform, you can cross-compile to like almost anything. And one of the other really annoying things for me is I never like to, like, I don't really like using Windows unless it's through like a Sliver shell or a Meterpreter shell or something like that. And so, I'd always have to compile like my stagers on Windows because you need C compile, MSVC and stuff like that. So I always wanted a way where I could like compile malware for Windows without using Windows. And of course, there's MinGW and there's lots of options there. But Go just makes it so easy to do that. That it was very appealing to me to write a C2 framework using this because I was like, I'll be able to compile it to anything, including Windows. Bishop Fox, we do a lot of work for tech companies. And so I actually wrote Sliver before you even started the red team at Bishop Fox. But even at the time, we were doing projects where we were targeting MacBooks and stuff like that, and a lot of Linux servers and stuff like that. And so I was like, it'd be really nice to have a C2 framework that we can compile for all the different platforms. And it seemed like Go was like could definitely fit that bill. So I was like, I want to write a C2 framework in Go. The fonts will be anti-aliased in my terminal, so I won't have to stare at these pixelated fonts all day. And so that's really where it all started. And around the same time, I'd also read Ken Thompson's 1984 paper called Reflections on Trusting Trust, which is like about backdooring a compiler. And Ken Thompson is one of the people who wrote Go at Google. And so I was like, it'd be really cool to like have an implant that can recompile itself for different platforms. And that way, like the same file, if the implant contains its own compiler and its own source code, we can like on the fly cross compile to any platform that we want as we're like hopping across different machines and stuff. That part didn't really pan out. But I ended up putting the compiler in the server, and that's how we generate all of the implant code dynamically, which I think is one of the more interesting features of Sliver. Is it contains the entire Go compiler toolchain, as well as a fantastic other open source project called Garble, which is like a Go code obfuscator. And so all of this is prepackaged, and we can compile it to any platform that we want. And it's all just built into a single binary. So when you want to set up Sliver, all you have to do is run a single executable, and you're done. there's no setup really needed. You don't have to, that's it. You're ready to go. So it also makes it very agile. And one of the things we always try to do at Bishop Fox for our is we try to spin up and tear down all of the infrastructure per operation. So that way we're never reusing anything.
Right, yeah. Which you don't want to reuse stuff because you don't want cross-contamination.
Exactly, as well as just for hygiene and all sorts of reasons. Also, I don't want to go around patching servers. I'm not about that life. So having a single binary deployment and being able to do it so easily has been really advantageous to having that type of sort of ecosystem that we try to maintain at Bishop Fox, where it's when you're done with the op, you blow away everything.
Yeah.
And I also like that if the key material is gone, you can't recover anything. So we make pretty heavy use of encryption throughout the entire Sliver. The C2 traffic's encrypted, connections are encrypted, all sorts of stuff. And once that key material is gone, there's no way to reestablish connections to the implants. They're just completely gone. Obviously, we always try to clean up because we're polite red teamers. But you never want to be in a situation. Nobody's perfect, and stuff gets dropped, and having the ability to say cryptographically, this thing can't be communicated with once the key material is gone.
Right.
I can sleep better at night.
Which is actually one of the things I love about it is because you don't have you can't just spin up a random server to get the interpreter session again, right? Because definitely I've seen where that is where what we'll call orphaned interpreter sessions left on client sites, right, by another red team or another pen testing group, and we're just why is this being ran at this time? Are you guys doing testing? What are you doing? And they're like, we didn't even know that was there. I was like, well, okay, but that's a separate problem.
So 2 problems. Yeah.
Now a double finding. No. But yeah, and I mean that, like you said, no one's perfect, right?
Yeah.
I'm not bagging on the pen test teams that forgot
and
to.
Meterpreter does have paranoid mode where you can lock it down, but it's not default.
Right.
You have to go set it up. You got to configure it. Yeah. So with Sliver, there is no option to not configure it that way.
Right,
That's the way it always works, and there is no option to disable it. So.
Yeah. So, and I've enjoyed using it, and it's available for anyone, which is also cool.
Yep.
And I don't have to pay $10,000 for 5 licenses
per user.
Or per user. Yeah. So, which again, I also like.
Which there's nothing wrong with
There's nothing wrong with paying for software.
A lot of the commercial C2 frameworks are very good. They're developed by very talented people. We've used them. We continue to use them at Bishop Fox. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt to have a free option. So
right. A robust free option.
Yes, a robust. So. We do try to have a professional grade is how I think about it. Because a lot of it, the other thing we do, which I think is not always practice, is we actually read code of projects before we use it.
Before you use it.
I know, very novel concept. And a lot of there's other great open source C2 frameworks as well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of not super well designed ones too.
Yes, definitely.
I wouldn't use in a professional context. If you're an actual adversary, it doesn't matter. You can use, C99 or whatever you want. But in a professional setting, we do try to make sure that what we're using is robust and secure, or at least as secure as what we're breaking. So.
Yeah. And I know Sliver's gotten a ton of press before. Most of it good. There's some journalists that actually don't understand technology that bash on it sometimes.
Oh, I haven't even seen those. So.
Oh yeah, they what they'll say is they'll be like, oh, this is the fact that this tool is open source makes it criminal. These people shouldn't be publishing these.
I mean,
tools.
I hear that from people on Twitter. I don't know, but I haven't seen it from journalists.
So,
but
everyone calls themselves a journalist.
Yeah,
now, right? Everyone.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to type words on Twitter, you're a journalist, don't you know?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, if that's our bar for journalists, then I guess I have heard that.
But I always laugh when I see stuff like that. I'm just like, what? Okay, it's an open source tool. What are you like? Professionals use this tool.
And also the other thing I would point out is, not that there's anything doing with this either, but there's no exploits.
Right.
there's no exploits in Sliver. It's purely post-exploitation. So it's not going to get you access to anything you don't already have access to.
Even your special version?
Well, we have extensions, but there's not really.
No one knew there was a special version.
Yeah,
now,
well,
now they do. No.
Yeah. I mean, I've told a lot of people this. Like, yeah, we do have a bunch of stuff that we built on top of it internally.
Right.
But honestly, most of that stuff isn't particularly interesting. It's like our implementation.
It's an ease of flow for you.
Yeah.
All. Yeah.
Like, obviously we use stagers for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have stagers that we've written that aren't open source, but it's not like they're that interesting because you can go on GitHub and find probably sometimes better stagers than what we've written. But you often kind of just need your own version of something. And it's often like a lot of times it's not novel or anything. It's just like you need your own version so that signatures don't exist.
Right.
And so that it just makes it an easier bar to clear. And so that way you're only loading the primary payload, directly into memory, which the Sliver payloads can get quite large depending on how many C2 frameworks or C2 protocols you embed in it. So, using stagers solves that problem because your stager can be a couple kilobytes.
Infinitely small.
Yeah.
And that was your workaround because of using Go, right? That kind of was the,
Yeah. Because with Go, even a Hello World binary is like 2 megabytes, which is about the size of Metasploit or Meterpreter. It's like 2 megabytes. Or the MetServe DLL is about 2 megabytes or something like that once you load everything. But so that was So we've since blown way past that. So I think it's currently closer to like 12 megabytes. But if you compress it and you load it over the network directly into memory, which you probably want to do anyways, it's not that big of a deal. So,
right.
Yeah.
Plus, we have unlimited bandwidth, unlimited memory now. Who cares if
for real though?
There's going to be someone in the comments that's going to be like, "Oh no, everything needs to be sub 10 kilobits."
Then, which we have to, use Rust at that point.
Exactly.
There are other
if you
options.
hate your life already, use Rust. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want to fight with the borrow checker rather than writing code, just use Rust. No, Rust is a good programming language. I don't mean to.
It is good. It just for people that aren't as intelligent as you, so people like me, right? Yeah. When I look at like Rust stuff, I was like trying to learn it. I was like, you know what? I realized that this is not me. Not gonna use it. Gonna use something else.
Well, it's all about the right tool for the right job. You
Right.
know, like there are a handful of cases where you might care about file size of your payload.
Right.
And you might not be able to load something over the network.
Mm-hmm.
At which point you should definitely use a Rust-based framework or something other than Sliver, right?
Just use C.
Yeah.
Just use C.
Or C. I still prefer memory-safe languages myself.
Oh,
so.
no way. No. You gotta be dangerous.
Yeah. Which we do have C stagers as well. So, I mean, we do use C and C++ and stuff.
Rust can't run on everything, Little weird embedded chips that aren't standard.
It's pretty close.
So.
It's pretty impressive.
I know. I'm actually legitimately a fan of Rust. So I give it crap, but it is, outside of what we'll call the higher languages, it's freaking amazing in my opinion. So
no,
I think it's the future.
Now, would I write a web application in it? Probably not. I mean, I know you can. Don't you know? I know people do, but at that point, I'm probably using something else. So,
right.
Yeah.
Python is the answer for web applications.
We still use Python. I have a love-hate relationship with Python just because packaging it is such a problem in my opinion.
In college, that was like your go-to thing all the time.
I still use it a lot. I still love Python. It's just you don't want to write something in Python that you have to like distribute. Like the
right.
packaging and distribution of Python is not. I know there's like more modern projects out there that try to address this, but using like the tools built into the language, it's just not as good. One of the beautiful things about Go is static compilation.
Mm-hmm.
Like you will get a single binary, it will run anywhere. You don't have to install anything. You don't have to set anything up.
Yeah.
You don't have to set up virtual environments and worry about package conflicts and stuff like that. So That's the price you pay for these large binaries, though. It's like
Right. Yeah.
Because it's statically compiled, you're going to get a bigger file size no matter what.
It includes everything in the kitchen sink, right? So,
which can also be advantageous when you want to evade certain types of telemetry, though, because it's going to package its own. Again, depending on you can use WinHTTP and Sliver, but by default it'll use like the Go HTTP stack, which won't load any of the Windows DLLs for HTTP communication. And so if there's user space hooks for those DLLs, you're not generating any of that telemetry, and you don't have to like worry about OpenSSL versions, which is my favorite thing. Because I don't know if you've ever tried to statically link OpenSSL, but it's not. Yeah. It's not my favorite activity in the world.
I mean, dealing with OpenSSL in total is just can always be a pain. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So you do. There are a lot of upsides to these large binaries in Go. It's you're reducing certain types of telemetry. It's more likely to run on more things, and there's just fewer chances of incompatibilities. So we feel like that trade-off's one we're willing to make in a lot of cases, because we also bill by the hour, so we can't spend all day,
solving a problem.
Yeah, or like figuring out what version of Glib C to link against to run on some old server like that. It's not that's not that fun. So
yeah, the client's not going to be appreciative of that. When it comes
exactly.
Billing time, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, we use Sliver, we love it, right? I get to pretend like we're like slightly cool when we use it. Like, it's like, oh, we're kind of like Bishop Fox now.
Yeah, look at this terminal. I think that's the other thing I like about Sliver is the terminal interface.
Yeah, I mean, that's very you.
It looks very hackery.
Yeah, it's very you. It's very you. So like knowing you, like it is. There's definitely a lot of. I know there's other developers who have worked on it, but there are definitely signatures of Joe in that. Like, I can tell if knowing you, I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah. It insults you if you try to run shell. So
you gotta, it. What was that saying that you used to always say it as well? But someone came up with it. It was like hackers use green text and black backgrounds or something.
Yeah.
Which I haven't joined that hardcore of a group yet. I'm still that light tan background black text. So
a light color scheme. That's disgusting.
I know. Yeah.
Do you use light mode in VS Code as well? like what?
First of all, coding in Vim is where it's at.
And, I use Vim too. No,
because I hate my life.
Yeah.
No, I have it like set up like how I like it now, and like I'm not a developer, right? I mean, you've seen my code.
I have seen your code.
So, not a developer at all. So like once I found something, I was like, okay, I understand all these things. I'm like, I don't want to venture out too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do use a light yellow background. Yeah. That's kind of tan.
Come on, man.
It's actually one of the defaults that you can have on Ubuntu.
I've never been so conflicted. Like you're using Vim, which is cool, but then you're using a light color. Like what? I'm not sure what to make of it.
I know, right? Yeah, I have people. It is a controversial item because there's literally no one that sees my screen. Like when I'm going on a client site and I'm actually still doing like if I'm like not talking to executives or boards, right? And I'm actually typing on the keyboard. And everyone always comments, why do you use that? Like, why that color scheme? Because it's not just like my Vim setup, right? It's also how I have all my terminals set up. So any Windows I open, light yellow background, black text. It is the superior way. It is so much better for your eyes. It's just...
Is it though?
It is, yeah. Green on black is...
I shouldn't talk. I'm like almost legally blind, so...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm there with you, right? Yeah. I wear contacts, but just because if I wear glasses, they only like this much works in glasses. Everything else looks like a fishbowl because of my astigmatism in my eyes. So I have to wear contacts. But yeah, no, it's supposedly it's better on the eyes, right? So
I don't know. I'm going to need a source on this.
Yeah. Some 60-year-old engineer I met freshman year of college. Yeah. Right.
Because it melts my eyes. Although I'm in a lot of dark rooms, so dark windowless rooms. So maybe that's it. But
I mean, that's the best room. No, no, I know. You send me photos. You have a very nice view for where you work.
All right, yeah, you caught me.
I've seen your setup. Your setup is.
You should see the other the gaming computer though is in a windowless room.
Okay.
So I still have some street cred.
Okay.
All right.
I was about to say I've seen the view from where you
Yeah.
work. It's like the typical. It's super nice.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
yeah.
Right. And you have the cheese grater screen as well.
Yeah.
So, which is, did you have that before you were writing Sliver? Did that screen come out, or were you using the 5K LG one?
So yeah, I had the 5K LG one
Okay.
before I bought the cheese grater.
Mm-hmm.
I had really bad ghosting issues with the LG panel though.
Yeah, lots of people had problems with that panel. I just didn't know what panel it was that you had when you were like, I hate the no anti-aliasing on Cobalt.
It was the LG Ultrafine. It was a great looking monitor, but the ghosting just killed me. So I got the 6K Apple display when it came out. I've been very happy with it's ridiculously overpriced. You should not buy it.
No, I have the studio displays myself.
Yeah.
So.
But listen, I cry when I see anti-aliased fonts, so I was like, I have to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. But that monitor is super nice.
Yeah. It's a beautiful monitor.
I just couldn't convince myself to buy 2 of them. So.
Yeah, 2 would be a stretch even for me.
I was like, so I bought the studio displays. I like
those are nice too.
They're not perfect. But,
no, and again, I think you're paying Apple tax on it, but it's a
you are.
Yeah,
but, so I mean, you knew me when I was very anti-Apple, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like religiously anti-Apple. And there was a lot of reasons for that. There was a lot of privacy stuff actually for it.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it that came out about, I actually became more anti-Apple as like I started to progress through college because I started working at the lab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask like, why don't we hack Apple products? And the response was, and this was what really made me like militant anti-Apple. We don't need to do that because Apple will give us anything that we need, or that's what the government was saying, right? Now, of course, they had their own Apple hacking.
I think that I think they've changed a bit since.
They have, they got a lot of bad PR actually because of Edward
Yeah.
Snowden. And my conditions for using Apple always came down to 2 things. You come out with a Steve Wozniak special limited version of the Mac, right? Or you start using ARM architecture. And as soon as I started using it, I bought it right away.
Yeah.
Actually, I waited a few months to see like what was going to happen, and then I bought it. But
I actually bought one really early too because I wanted to make sure Sliver ran on it as soon as people started using it. And to Go's credit, it worked really well.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. And also to Apple's credit, malware runs great on Rosetta 2.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's
very compatible.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I love it now, and I love lockdown mode as well. Huge fan of that.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yep.
even I like that I can run it on my laptop.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Which you should come to Objective by the Sea, another fantastic security conference.
Yeah.
Really, really great content.
Where is it?
It's so they change locations each year, but it goes between Hawaii and like the Mediterranean coast in Spain. So
okay.
So I think
you have to remember, like I'm still the one paying for my conferences, right? Because I own the company.
Yeah. It's a write-off.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes it all that much better.
Yeah. No, but it's a legitimately great conference. I know it's in like it can be a little cliche having it in like.
See, my only problem with going to Hawaii is I'm worried if I go there with you, you're going to be like, Drew, we now live here. Okay.
Yeah.
That was one of the discussions in college. Was like because we were both working for Bishop Fox, and like we could do this remote, man.
And I did live in Hawaii.
You did it.
And it was amazing. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I was homeless in Hawaii, for a little bit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but it's a great conference. It's all Apple security all Apple product security stuff.
Oh yeah.
So,
okay.
And I think the talks they post the talks online as well.
Okay. Everyone there will be way smarter than me. So
they're way smarter than me too. So but highly recommend it. You should definitely come out. I think you'd enjoy it because it's a lot of cell stuff. Like there was a great talk last year about the Apple's new GPS or the satellite communication stuff, which is like right up your alley.
Yep.
Like the whole time they were presenting, I was like, I wish Drew was here. So.
Yeah, one of no, I'm not gonna say it. I know someone that was working on that project.
Okay,
and, he was someone I used to work with. So, yeah, super interested to hear when they're like, yeah, we got a satellite program. And I know Matt was also working on that program and stuff like that. So, yeah, lots of SDR folks working on it. So it's really cool. I think it's actually a really cool feature of that Apple implemented, and which is, for the people that don't know, it's the SMS, or not SMS, sorry, the SOS capability using satellite communication with Iridium and being able to still communicate. And it's actually saved a few people's lives so far.
Already, yeah.
So again, I think more and more tech is going to be on the cell side is going to be communicating not just on terrestrial type communication towers and stuff like that, but we're actually going to speak to satellites and stuff like that. Which I know Starlink. I heard this is a rumor. Okay, so this is not confirmed. This is not like privileged information because I wouldn't be giving any of that out.
We're on a podcast. You should exclusively talk about rumors.
But Starlink also is going to be working with cell manufacturers to having it so that if they don't have good cell service in an area, you can actually just use Starlink on the cell stuff. So I don't know if that
be interesting to see. I've heard there's some limitations of physics in doing that.
Yes, there are.
Like, you just can't. That tends to be the limiting factor with a lot of technology is just physics.
Well, well, especially with radio.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Everyone is just like, especially when people are like, "Oh, I want to get into radio," right? And they're like talking to me, and I'm just like, "Do you enjoy physics?" And they're just like, "What? What does physics have to do with radio?" Literally everything.
Yeah.
So if you don't enjoy physics, like don't get into radio, right? Very quickly, once you leave, your entry period into SDR and you run your RTL SDR and stuff, you're going to be realizing, oh snap, I have to learn a lot of math.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it is possible. There are possibilities.
Yep.
There are engineers way smarter than me that can solve out all that stuff. So, like I said, it's a rumor. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if it.
And I mean,
true.
clearly, you can send some amount of data because you can already send it from an iPhone. But
I mean, we do have sat phones and stuff like that.
It was one of the more interesting things was seeing how they compress, and they have they can use 1 bit to indicate common messages and stuff like that, so that they're not they can send the absolute minimum amount of information.
I mean, when you have unlimited money, you can hire the smartest engineers in the world.
Yeah.
So now I became an Apple fanboy.
Yeah.
Even my wife has commented on that. She was just like, "You used to have Dell monitors."
Everyone sells out, man.
I know. She's I'm just late to the game, I guess.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to be carrying a Windows laptop with me as well, and I don't look forward to that. I know.
Sorry, no.
I know.
No, there's nothing wrong with Windows, other than the design and implementation. But
yeah, and the telemetry data that they send out.
Yeah, and the advertisements in the start menu, I'm not a fan of. And I know you can remove. I've removed those.
Yes.
I have Windows computers, and I have to go in and remove those things. It's just
Yeah, because you game.
I've never fought with the license activation on a MacBook.
Right.
These problems just don't exist on other platforms. So
that's right. Do they still have you call if you can't activate your Windows 11?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I
haven't
just
done
do it online.
IT support for such a long time. So
the more annoying thing is they try to force you to sign into a Microsoft account now.
Oh gosh, I hate that. That is the well. So
and I recently
Apple also has that though.
No, you can skip the one on Apple more easily. Because the more annoying thing is I recently built a new gaming computer and I installed Windows on it. And Windows didn't have the Ethernet drivers. And it didn't have the Wi-Fi drivers. And it's like, well, you have to sign into an account.
Right.
I'm like, I literally can't connect this machine to the internet. How am I supposed to? So anyways, turns out you can drop into a command prompt and run some commands. How do normal people use computers, by the way? I don't
They have someone else like you help them set it up. Right?
I really understand why normal people hate computers when it's you just have to drop into the command line and run random PowerShell commands to do it.
That's right.
So,
it's safe. Don't worry. You can do this.
Yeah.
60-year-old mom.
Yeah. But that can be annoying on Apple too, especially on iPhone. You kind of have to sign into an Apple account.
Yeah,
so, but
you do. Eventually, I still am a believer of the idea that, your cell phone will become your like central computing system
Yeah.
that you use. So you'll have docks for your cell phone to make it like a laptop. Like when Motorola came out with that, I literally thought that was going to take over the world because that's all I wanted in my life at that time.
Yeah.
Is I don't need a laptop. I just need a really powerful cell phone that can do stuff that my laptop can do, and just have a dock for it, right? So
We're living in the future, man.
I know.
Every time there's a cryptocurrency heist, people like hackers stealing magical internet money. I'm like,
that's right.
We are living in the cyberpunk future. Like,
I mean, we have Cybertrucks now.
yeah.
We literally have the Cyberpunk
Yeah.
future, right? And we have Apple Vision or Apple Glass or whatever it's called.
And wars are fought via drones.
Yeah,
Like it's
that's right.
it's
Manless,
crazy.
Yeah.
So
This is not the dystopia I wanted, though, right? I wanted more neon lights.
you can't win them all, you know.
Okay. Did you get the Apple Vision Pro on that?
I did not.
Okay. I haven't got it
Good friend
either.
of mine. I mean, I've been a big fan of VR.
Yeah.
I think it's a pointless technology other than video games. But
I was hoping it was going to be like actual like augmented reality.
yes, so it's definitely a more interesting take. Like the augmented reality is definitely, I think, the future of VR. Because obviously there's kind of a fine line between VR and like this pass-through AR stuff. Obviously, there's been other attempts at AR where with like Google Glass or the Microsoft HoloLens stuff where it's like it's not a pass-through camera.
Mm-hmm.
But the pass-through camera stuff is very impressive. It definitely seems like if there is a future to VR, it's that.
Yeah.
And, I look forward to the Cowboy Bebop future where, you're like hacking through.
And then you have like a billion fingers that pop out.
You're flying through like different login pages and stuff. So, it's a development I welcome in the cyberpunk future that we live in. So.
Yeah. When there's like actual glasses that are like real augmented reality, like I'll be really
the
sold.
latency on the Vision Pro is crazy.
Oh, it is.
Like-
It's
like-
super good.
It's like almost nothing. So, it'll be interesting to see where they take it. But it seems like a $3,500 monitor.
It is.
So,
And
like the most compelling use cases I've seen so far is like people cooking with it and putting timers above
oh, really?
above like their pot where they're boiling water and stuff. And it's like, well, I spent $100 on an Alexa and I use that as a kitchen timer. So maybe,
Here I am just using my cell phone like a scrub.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I if it was more augmented reality like, I would have bought into it. Even if they were to charge like $8K for it, but it was like actual glasses and not like the whole headset,
Yeah.
I would have
I think there is, at some point in the future, we'll probably get there.
So the government actually already has something like that, and they've had it for years, and I've seen it and I've tested it,
Oh,
and I'm sold.
it probably costs $2 million.
It costs all the dollars.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Like no one can afford it.
Yeah.
The government barely can afford it.
Yeah.
So, but it works exactly as you think it works. Like augmented reality would work. You look at a laptop, and this is like some of the demos that they had. You like flip over a laptop, and it will tell you how, like if you're an operator. I'll give a use case for it. If you're an operator and you're working in a place and you need to take out some drives from some place and put them in some bags or whatnot, you can take the whole laptop. But let's say you don't want to take the whole laptop, or you have the time to take and clone a drive or something like that. You wear the glasses, and it will tell you like, bam, like it will analyze the laptop, tell you where all the screws are, right? And then
That's kind of cool.
yeah, it'll be like, damn, this is how you like take these screws off, right? Here's a hidden screw or something like that, and then it will like lead you through the thing. Or you look at a cell phone screen, and you need to do something. It will tell you what to do on that cell phone screen. So it's pretty legit. But yes, it does cost all the dollars.
It seems like we're spending a lot to optimize a very small thing, which is like how to take which screws to take out. Like I've taken apart a lot of laptops. That's usually not the limiting factor that I run into. At least.
Yeah. It's well, that was just like the more public use cases that they're giving out. About it,
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
There's other use cases that they have of it. It just can't talk about those.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, but it's cool tech. But that system does cost $1 billion. I mean, not literally, but essentially, it might as well be $1 billion because you're not buying it. So, So I'm just waiting for that to be used by red teaming, right? So
I think I've always wanted to write a VR interface to Metasploit, which maybe I could do now for Sliver since I got my own thing. But and I know the code base a lot. I know the Sliver code base a lot better. So, and then although the Metasploit code base is pristine as far as like open source projects go, it's very good. But I've always wanted to do something like that because again, I want like Ed's hacking interface from Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
So
I just want to fly around the Gibson like they did in the movie
that
Hackers.
that would be another good one. Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We're actually I won't. We're gonna have something like that as a display, just as a fun thing. But so on that, talking about going back to Sliver, but not talking about Sliver itself, talking about because you mentioned it, you work for a consultancy.
Yep.
As far as I've known, your like real jump into security has always been with a consultancy.
Yeah, I've been at Bishop Fox almost 13 years now. So that's...
And you started as an intern there,
Started
right?
as an intern.
Yep.
Now I guess I'm a managing principal is technically mine because I do have direct reports.
Okay.
So I have to manage a team.
How's that? How's that from comparing to not having to manage people?
Honestly, the people on my team are really good and easy to manage.
Oh, perfect.
So it actually so that worked out great. I don't know I would enjoy it as much if I had other people like if you
didn't have full control of everyone that you hired on.
Yeah,
your team.
exactly. Like if especially or like I don't know if I just had other people like I'm less confident I would enjoy it as much. Just because I can be very direct, and not everybody likes that. So
yeah. My wife is not. She calls it my engineering mindset.
Yeah,
right, where I'm like very direct. Like this needs to get done.
I tend to also be very opinionated.
You don't say.
Yeah. and some people don't like that, but yeah. So. I think managing has been kind of like an interesting. One of the first things I learned about management, though, and I guess this is warning to other people who get into it, is what I look for in a manager is one of the first things I learned. What I look for in a manager is very different than what other people look for in a manager. Because like when you could become a manager, you'll be like, all right, well, I'll do what I would want a manager to do, or like what I expect a manager to do. And at least for me, that's not. I found out very quickly that's not what other like.
No. Yeah, I had that realization as well.
Yeah. So there's some shifting you have to do in order to sort of address things like that.
Yeah. Manage emotions and stuff like that.
Yeah, or just like it's more about like personalities and stuff. I wouldn't say it's like necessarily managing emotions, but. You want to make sure people are happy with their jobs and they're engaged, right? You as a manager might have to do things to ensure that your team feels that way. So, and those might be different than what because everyone's different. That might be different than what you would want your own manager to do to keep you engaged. So,
yeah. So, but so in the consultancy life, right? What's the one thing that you think working for a consultancy offers that like working for a full-time job or of a single employer would not be able to offer you?
I mean, so there's trade-offs like everything, right? Everything in life has trade-offs. I think one of the big advantages that I really enjoy about consulting, though, is every op is totally different. Different tech stacks, like different people, different EDRs, all different types of controls. Like we'll be doing Windows Active Directory 1 week, and the next week it's like Chromebooks and GCP is like the environment you're targeting. So just and this is also why people don't like consulting, I should say, is it can be very difficult to know and be confident in your abilities to target all these different platforms. Especially when it comes to like the hipster technologies, like like Kubernetes and containers and stuff is kind of like the new hotness right now. But that's what I love. I love hacking the hipster technologies, like all the new stuff, all the stuff the VCs are talking about, and like is getting used in the startups in San Francisco are using like all these crazy new web frameworks, and that's what I love to hack on. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. I feel like others do not, but I think it also. So I don't think you get that working for a company,
right?
Because you'll tend to target the same technologies because companies tend to choose tech stacks and continue to use them.
Right.
It's very uncommon to see companies switch from like Office 365 to like GCP and Google Workspace, for example. Like that's a major shift in like just like business practices. So typically never happens once you choose one of these platforms. Like they're very sticky. So I think that's one thing consulting offers is the opportunity often to just learn, often forcibly have to learn them.
Right.
But, not everybody gets the opportunities to do these things. And if you're working for a single company, you may never target a Chromebook or, a MacBook if you're all Windows,
Right. And it's way different, right?
Yeah.
Like attacking a Chromebook, in my opinion, is way harder.
Yeah.
Than...
I mean, Chromebooks are some of the most secure general purpose computational devices you can buy. So it's a very interesting, there's no file system.
Yeah, it's totally different.
It's
you
totally
have to
different.
Change your idea of how you attack a system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy. So but again, it's really up to you in what you like to do. It can also be quite stressful when you're like on a red team and you don't really have anything good, and you're like,
Right.
how do I even target a Chromebook?
We need to get that too high findings, right, to start feeling okay about ourselves again.
Yep. So, but that's what I enjoy. I really enjoy going after the diversity of tech out there and learning new platforms and going after them. My favorite thing is when you encounter new technologies that no one's given a DEF CON talk about, no one's written about, and it's up to you to kind of like find the interesting gaps and stuff. That's what I really enjoy. So,
yeah, I mean, and I think the thing that you mentioned, it being forced on you, is like kind of the thing. Because like everyone's like, oh, I could learn the technologies if I want to. But as a consultant, you don't have the option to if I want to. Yeah. It's like you have to.
And by the way, you have to do it in the next 3 weeks.
Right. Exactly. Find some cool things. But you always seem to do it, right? Like that's the other cool thing is like...
There's always, listen, for all the diversity and differences between tech stacks, there's a lot of similarity. Like it's all bits and bytes and like,
and things will be architectured similarly, right?
Yeah.
So
there are like core aspects of fundamental properties of technology that everything uses, HTTP, is very common. So if you understand that, it doesn't really matter if it's like, you're trying to intercept traffic from a Chromebook, an iOS device, or a MacBook. You're going to use similar approaches.
Right.
The TLS stack is going to be similar. You might use different approaches to inject your own certificates or disable certificate pinning or something like that. Like those details may vary pretty significantly, but it's all the same stuff. So I think one of the things I really enjoy is like kind of figuring out what those like primitives are, like those fundamental pieces of the technology, and then working your way up to understanding it so that you can break it or do what you will with it. So.
Yeah, it's why I like companies that like, for us, we do a lot of radio stuff, right? So companies that, they're like, oh, we want to do a Wi-Fi pen test. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
No. Like,
also, modern Wi-Fi isn't that bad.
It's not that bad.
Well, once upon a time when WEP was like everywhere, that would, wireless pen tests were a lot of fun. But now it's like, all right, does it have WPA, EAP?
Right.
And,
yeah. Exactly. Right. But I like it when companies are now like moving to different, more obscure wireless technologies.
Yeah.
Right. So they're using some type of unknown or not generally discussed,
the Zigbees and the...
Well, not even Zigbee, because Zigbee, Bluetooth, and like Z-Wave, we actually consider that commodity now.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So,
behind.
There's other like 802.15.4 protocols that are built on top of the 802.15.4 family that are different from there, right?
Yeah.
So seeing those and being able to abuse those, because they will follow something very similar to Bluetooth Low Energy or Zigbee or something like that as well. So there's still going to be some universal truths that we can try to take advantage of and modify. But that's what I like seeing, the diversity of like radio technologies, right? But it's very similar in the, they're going to follow a lot of the same items, right? So if you have a general vulnerability for 802.4 or 802.15.4 that works on, the first 3 layers, it's going to, or the first 2 layers, it's going to work for any technology that's affecting that, right? So.
And it's probably broken. I don't know about you. I'm sure you've experienced this, but I get the sense that people think like once it's in the air, like it can't be, like it's just gone.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible
you can't touch it.
You can't touch it.
That's right.
It's in the ethereal realm once it's like, once the waves leave the antenna.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's a lot of places that do good encryption stuff, right? So crypto solves a lot of those problems. But it's when you're attacking the radio systems before and you're able to see like, oh, they're actually not using crypto. Like they're just XORing data or something like
crypto's
that.
hard too, right? Like even TLS has vulnerabilities and all like
crypto's super
kind of
hard,
often. Like
right?
It's really hard to get crypto right.
So that's why one of the things that if you ask someone if they made their own crypto, they kind of know that's like a whistle like, oh, you guys do it wrong. So what I've found is if I word the question, have you made any improvements on any crypto? They're just like, oh yeah, and they want to tell me all about it, right?
Yeah,
so now I know, like, okay, great. So a non-math nerd is going to be able to break this stuff, right? I don't have to have a math nerd, on this project.
Yeah.
Because
they're expensive. So
they are. But there are a lot of cool professors that
That's true.
do math stuff that are willing to jump on projects. So. But yeah, that is what I find. And in the radio space, for whatever reason, people like to adopt their own, roll their own type of crypto project.
Well, I think also it's just harder to use like a standard library like TLS, right? Like if there's no TCP stack, you're not using TLS. Like
Well, I mean, but there are standard families that we can use.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, there's obviously still standard ciphers and things like that. But
then they just decide they're like, oh, but we can change it and it's more efficient.
We'll hash it again.
Yeah. So, but I think you run into that stuff just on apps in themselves, right? When they try to make, especially when someone like tries to obfuscate their own code and they make their own obfuscator and stuff like that.
It's usually cute, yeah.
So,
another super hard code obfuscation is an incredibly hard problem.
Oh, it's definitely a challenge. Yeah. Like not something I'm ever going to jump into.
That's why again going back, Garble, great open source project. I'm so happy it exists.
Yeah, I think the another thing that I've seen is on that is it's easier to be someone on the red side than it is someone trying to defend and create defenses, right? So because we have to find one problem, one little kink in the armor, essentially to really then create some exploit chain. That's awesome. But when you're defending against it, you have to think about all the things that you're defending against. I
think, again, there's definitely asymmetry here. But the thing is, when you're on the defending side, you also get to stack the deck, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's a significant advantage, right? Like, so yes, I don't know which side actually has the advantage. I know it's asymmetric, but I'm honestly not super sure. I mean, in modern enterprises, it's usually the red team because there's just so much crap in a modern enterprise that gets thrown onto the internet with like no one understanding what it does or how it works. And obviously the defenders just at a disadvantage. But, we work with a lot of really sophisticated clients that have very talented blue teams, and they know how to stack the deck. And when you do that properly, there are organizations that are very difficult to target.
Oh, definitely.
Like right up until you're doing like nation state level stuff where you're 0-daying their iPhone. Then So obviously there's a cap there. But I mean I don't know if you read the triangulation thing from Kaspersky, or Project Triangulation, something like that.
Yeah.
Where someone was targeting Kaspersky researchers with iOS 0 days. Very, very impressive exploits. Even used some hardware exploits even. Very, very impressive stuff. So clearly private organizations can, detect even... Yeah,
right?
or
and then
can defend
and then
against
find
it.
it.
Yeah, can actually defend against some of this really, really sophisticated stuff. Obviously, very, very difficult, and there's not a lot that can. But I think that is because obviously I hear people say that a lot, like, oh, you only have to find the one thing, and that's definitely true. You do only have to find the one thing. And often there's not just one, though. Like, there's usually
not.
a few. But, when defenders stack the deck correctly, like, that's a significant advantage they have, too. So.
Definitely. And as you have technology longer in your environment, you become more familiar with it. Like, you can start building better defenses around it, right? Yeah. I still think that the red team has it easier, though, than the blue side. And that deals more with not just, like, product defense. It deals with corporate politics and stuff like that.
I think for me, it just depends more on, like, do you have to support legacy technologies? Well,
working with a lot of utilities, they're supporting a lot of that.
Yeah, so like, who has it better? I think to me is a much more practical question that varies very significantly depending on what the business is trying to do. So I think if on average, I think more oftentimes than not, the red team probably does have an advantage. Again, just because, like, so much stuff is broken. Like, the industry has been shilling broken technology for 30 years. And, so there's so much of it out there. And, like, it just, you just have to find it. But if you, like, again, if an organization's using, like, Chromebooks with U2F hardware keys to authenticate to accounts, and they have some decent enterprise policies applied to those Chromebooks, like, that's a really difficult target.
Yeah.
Again, short of $4 million worth of 0 days, which
companies usually don't want to pay for that.
Yeah, they don't.
Just saying, like,
don't.
The amount of companies that we have worked with companies that have paid for 0 days to be used on engagement. Less than a handful of companies.
Yeah, and very rare.
Companies usually don't need to go to that extreme either.
Well, you can also just do an assume breach at that point.
That's what we try to tell them. Like, just get us to that level then.
And I get there are subtle differences between, like, using a 0 day and, like, an assume breach exercise, but it's usually not $4 million worth of differences. Although, again, there's much cheaper exploits for various technology.
Yeah, exactly.
The $4 million figure is predicated on them actually being, having a clean shop. Which is very difficult and somewhat rare. So,
I can tell you we've never paid $4 million for a 0 day.
No, that'd be crazy.
There are people. I actually recently there was a government player that reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, do you have any Windows XP O days laying around?"
You're like, "Do you need an O day?"
And I was just like, "Well, that's what I asked them." I was like, "Do you need an O day for Windows XP?" And they're like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay."
There's no end days for fully patched XP?
There's
gotta be. I haven't looked, but
I was just like, okay, well, tell me what you need in that. They didn't actually need it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They just thought they needed an O day.
Because obviously, there's been a lot of bugs found in Windows since the XP end of life, and I'd be surprised if none of those also applied to XP. But I honestly haven't seen an XP machine in so long. I don't know.
I can't think the last time. Actually, I know an XP machine that I interface with, but they weren't like a client.
Yeah. I have used MS-0867 in the last couple of years, which was fun. Yeah, I hadn't seen that in a while, but
pulling out all reliable there.
Yeah.
Huh?
And then we did another project that had a ZOS mainframe from the 1980s, which that was really fun. I really liked, like, the niche weird stuff. So that was
that
really
for, like,
fun.
a financial institution? Or?
I shouldn't say, but
okay.
But it was a really fun project, and you don't really see stuff like that very often. So it was great.
I've never had to do any testing on something like that.
Yeah, I finally got to be like, I hacked the mainframe because it was a literal mainframe.
Please tell me it was called Gibson. Yeah.
It was not, but
still cool.
Yeah,
still cool.
It was still a really interesting, fun project. So
yeah,
and so that's kind of the opposite of the hipster stuff, which is like the ancient stuff. But anything weird, I like,
Thank you for tuning in to Red Team Radio. Don't forget to like this episode, hit subscribe, and follow for more. Craving extra Red Team Radio exclusives? Dive deeper at redteamradio.net and click support for early episode releases and members-only content. Join us twice a month as we continue to unveil the unseen in the Red Team Chronicles. Remain vigilant and do not cease to be curious.